Hi, welcome to the TarTalks YouTube channel. Today we're going to be discussing my October knits. So I will address the elephant in the room. We are in a different location. So the area that I usually do my filming in is currently being utilized by others in the home. So this is what we're working with. This is not actually how I store my knits. Or my yarn. I simply pulled out my yarn just to display it, so we're not just distracted by all my manga library. Fun fact though, I am really into manga and anime, so if you are also a fan, please do let me know in the comments what your favorite anime or manga is, or series or whatever. And we're already besties. I think the YouTube algorithm kind of picked up my fall knitting plans video because it got a lot more views than my first podcast episode, just literally out of nowhere. So thank you for everybody who has watched that video, watched previous videos, and also the feedback that I received on that video. Lots of really great tips and suggestions. Somebody suggested maybe color coordinating my knits with my hijab, which I have done today. Somebody else asked if I can tuck things in so that they can see the garment that I'm wearing better, and I will try my best to do that. That being said, getting into the actual knitting aspect of this podcast, I'll start by what I'm wearing today. So I don't really have a pattern for what I'm wearing. This was very much a finessed kind of free-handed piece. I really wanted to knit the Pebble Top by Lynette, but A, it was not size inclusive, B, it was on 3mm needles, and C, it just seemed not the hardest thing to figure out myself. Obviously the picot edging that I did is very different and not as nice as what Lynette did, but I just figured I could do something that was sufficient, learn how to do something that was sufficient for me and what I was looking for. I didn't need it to be perfect because I really wanted a quick win, something that I can maybe wear layered like I am now, which I think is super cute, but also just have something cute to wear around the house. So really it did not need to be perfect. So what I did was I actually knit this on 5mm needles. I double-stranded drop saffron, which is a sport weight yarn, in the colorway amethyst. That's the colorway that I used. I really like it. I've actually worn this so many times in so many different ways, so I am surprised by how versatile it is, and very pleased. I did not expect to be wearing it as much as I did, and I knit it in about a week, so I think I've really won on all fronts. I knit this months ago, I think in May or June or something like that, so definitely not a recent finished object, but still something that is very, very much beloved. Okay, so what did I finish in October? I think the first thing that I am so excited to share is the completion of my field day cardigan.
Okay, so just a disclaimer, this is actually not a finished object. This is really an unfinished object. I still have to weave in my ends as well as sew down the back of the neck. But what I will say is I usually don't care about that. I would still consider it a finished object, but for the case of this particular project, I will be considering it unfinished because I'm actually doing a cowl with my good friend Yasmin of Cozy Tricot, and she's just finishing up, and I'm just timing my final I guess touches to be timed at the time that she is finishing hers, so that we can technically be done together. So for the sake of our cowl, this is actually not a finished object, even though I mistakenly call it so. So that is just a disclaimer.
I will put photos up. I love this cardigan. This pattern was a whirlwind to knit. So why? For 1,000,001 reasons. First of all, the actual pattern that I knit from was the Field Day Cardigan by Ozetta. But I made so many heavy modifications that it really was more like the Field Day jacket. So if you are looking to kind of create something that I did, I would just recommend purchasing the Field Day jacket instead, because I did knit as I do with everything. I knit off gauge. The yarn that I'm using is Noro Madara in the colorway Sake. Everybody knows and loves this yarn. It is absolutely gorgeous. I purchased mine from the Typical Bliss e-store because she just got the hookup, okay? She's got the hookup. In terms of stitches, I was knitting off gauge, so I knit the extra small. I think my stitch gauge was like 19 stitches or 18 stitches, I forget. But blocked, I believe it was 18. And as I was knitting it, I had it like halfway through, I'm like, I don't have enough yarn. I only had 700 grams, so seven skeins. And then by the time I got to the end, like finishing the body ribbing, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have too much. I should have like just made a bigger size. And then I finished the arms. I'm like, wait, how did I usually take 150 grams to knit both sleeves. And that's if it's a raglan. So me knitting this drop shoulder, it took me almost an exact 200 grams to knit the sleeves, which were shorter. So I was very confused how that happened. And then I tried it on and it just felt, ugh. And at that point, like before I knit the sleeves, I was a little bit worried that it would be a little too small. Like I thought I would have some yarn left over and I'd be like really, really cheesed about the fact that I have like what is effectively like, it would have been, like, let's just say I could have bought like half a sweater's quantity of Drops Lima with how much I had left over, which was not even one skein. So, very expensive. It's probably one of my most expensive sweaters to date, or like pieces to date. And because of that, like I just wanted it to be perfect. So before I blocked it, I was like actually really, really stressed out and like ready to unravel if I needed to, even though I just spent the past 2 months on it. But then blocking blocking is magic. Absolute magic. I don't know. I should have just believed in my swatch and realized that it would be fine, and it was exactly what I wanted. So what I wanted was a fit that it was not oversized, but it was loose, if that makes sense. Like I wanted something that just draped off the body, that I was like comfortable in. Like the arms were like, I had room, like I had a lot of roominess, but it wasn't oversized. Because again, I feel like for my own style, I think something that's too oversized can look sloppy if it's not done right, and I tend to not do it right. So that's on me, not the pattern, not any pattern. Let's talk about the pattern writing. I am now like officially an Ozetta stan. Okay, I am so excited to like I've just been scrolling her like website and Instagram, looking at everything that she has, like, and I have the Lakes pullover that's on cue. I like want to make the Miles shirt jacket. I want to make the Nature's cardigan, I think. And of course, like the moon set, like everything is gorgeous. And I like, she just has amazing pattern writing. There are like very little things, like small things that I would like change, or like if I were to provide like if I had to say and provide criticism that I could say, I do think like some of like the formatting could be a little bit better, because I can, I could get lost at certain points. But other than that, it was like a fantastic pattern. Like it has like dimensions for like the different like depths and lengths and everything like that. So it was really, really easy to modify. It was also just like very clearly written, and it wasn't like, it wasn't hand-holdy, but it was very like, it gave you what you needed, but one step more, so that you were always taken care of, if that makes sense. So I don't consider that being like babied in pattern writing, but I just felt very taken care of as a user. So I feel like from like a user-centric thinking perspective, like Ozetta really is so, like, I loved it. I think I even like her patterns more than Petite Knits, just based on this one pattern, because I've knit a lot of Petite Knit, and some of her patterns are like really bad in my opinion. Some of them are amazing, but some of them are quite bad. So we're an Ozetta stan now. I also really love the fact that I like learned how to knit that the button band as I went, because that is like such a that was such a more enjoyable process than having to pick up stitches and knit it. Like it felt like just part of the it is literally part of the process rather than being its own thing, but it actually created like such a better knitting experience. And I also think because you're knitting because you're knitting the buttons as you go, it like creates just such organic milestones that are like, if I sat down, I could knit like one button to the other button in a day. Like that's like a day of really intense knitting. But obviously I wasn't doing that. But as a result of that, it was really, really motivating to do. With the sleeves, I'm trying to think what I did. I never follow the pattern for sleeves. Like I just do whatever I want, and then I hope for the best, and it worked out perfectly. I think I like picked up 2 every 3, and then it was a little small, so then when I blocked it, I like stretched it out and I pinned it down, so it got what I did. So probably you should follow her pattern, like whatever she says. I don't even know what she said to do. Don't even read. I never even read that part of the sew. That part is poorly written. Like I do not take ownership of that, because I literally skip anything that has to do with sleeves. Yeah, so we love it. What else? Another piece I finished is a pair of worsted weight socks that are a gift knit. I knit these in Briggs & Little dark heritage in the colorway dark gray. I knit these quite fast. Like when it comes down to it, I think I could knit a sock in a day, which is literally what I did. The second sock I knit, me and Bree B Knits, we visited our another friend of ours, Cozy Tricot, in a different city, just for a nice little weekend trip. And actually no, it wasn't one day, it was 2 days. I knit it basically over the weekend. And of course, like we did have like knitting time and downtime, but it wasn't like I was just sitting and knitting all day. So I would argue that I probably could knit a sock in a day if I had to. So this is worsted weight. I think I used 4.5 millimeter needles. The actual yarn is an Aran weight. Oh, why am I saying worsted weight? It's an Aran weight yarn. And I use 4.5 millimeter needles. I don't know my gauge. I think I cast it on 40 stitches. I did a 2x2 rib for 10 rounds. Then I did a 3x1, like the top part of the foot was 3x1. No, sorry, 2x1. And then the bottom part was just stockinette, and I did that for 20 rounds. Gusset, gusset flap, that kind of shenanigan. And then connected for the foot, and I just a really basic sock. No pattern. I just honestly, I just kind of eyeball it, to be honest. It really does depend on the yarn, but I kind of just see, I'll cast on, I'll be like, how big is it? Do I kind of want, it's never failed me. I'm not looking for socks to be perfect, especially with gift knits. I know a lot of people can take on a lot of stress when it comes to knitting socks because they want the perfect fit for the person they're gifting it to. And the reason for that being that, the people they gift it to probably wear it with, shoes, out and about. Me, I do take on stress with knitting socks simply for the fact that I have to knit a sock, and I have to knit for somebody else, but I am not too fussed about it fitting perfectly. Obviously, I'm not going to knit a baby size sock for an adult, but I'm not fussed about it fitting perfectly. I'd rather it be a little bit roomy than tight. At the end of the day, anyone I'm knitting a sock for, it is with the intention of them to be cozy around the house, And frankly, I do not want to know about your feet that intimately. Much love, okay? Nothing but love, but I don't need that. Thank you. Thank you. So that's it. Honestly, when it comes to FOs, I don't know what it is. I think I'm a little bit, I don't think I'm burnt out with knitting at all. I think I'm really, really excited, but I think in terms of what I have on my needles, so much of them are gift knits, and so much of the stuff I made, I had previously cast on for myself, are now done, or were done. I've made zero progress on my, and the only other thing that I had that was for myself, as of last video, was my twist loop sweater, and that's on timeout right now because Actually, I'll show you why it's on timeout right now. I will happily show you. We're back. I think we're okay. I hope we're okay. I was just about to show you why I have my twist loop sweater on timeout. Yeah. I'm trying to salvage it. I really am. Like, I really am. I don't know what to do. Let it be known that I immediately bought a yarn winder after this fiasco. Okay? Let it be known. So, she's on timeout. Have not worked on her in the least. I think I have like 6 rounds, or like even less, maybe 4 rounds now left until I split for the body, and it's simply not going to be done. I've just accepted I'm not going to finish this year. I'm going to work on it a lot this year, so hopefully I can at least like finish the body or something. But who knows? I'm not even going to make any goals, but it is what it is. Knitting is for fun. If I don't want to knit it because it's stressing me out, it's not happening. It's okay. It's fine. It's a morally neutral thing. Okay? She's going to sit there and she's going to get done one day. But as a result of that, literally all I had on my needles, effective mid-October, were gift knits. So I have 3 new cast-ons. It's very small. It haven't made much progress just yet, but I'm sure you can tell what this is. I'm making a Sophie shawl. And this is very much, again, a finesse pattern. I actually found a YouTube video that talks about how to do applied I-cord bind off, or applied I-cord, which is what I'm doing here. Really, really simple. I actually saw many videos when I was first trying to make a Sophie shawl the first time around, and I'm like, oh, what is this weird, it's not working, not realizing that you have to do multiple rounds before, or multiple rows before it starts to work. But suffice to say, it's working, and I'm really curious to hear what you think. I feel like I am somebody who, I started knitting for the problem solving aspect of it. I didn't even know patterns were a thing. I just thought, oh, people just know how to knit, they just figure it out. So I'm I want to figure out how to make things. So I feel like I fell in love with knitting the first time. The first time I fell in love with knitting, it was truly for the experience of it was a puzzle. I would figure things out, and I think that's something that I hold even to today. I will try to finesse patterns. Sometimes I don't want to, of course. Sometimes I want the treat of somebody telling me exactly what to do to get a beautiful product. But I think because of that, I don't always if I think I can make something and I don't think I'm gonna get value out of purchasing a basic pattern, I won't. There are, and when I say that, I think there's a lot of value in purchasing basic patterns. How to explain it? When it's with garments, I do think that there's a lot of value, but I feel with accessories, I just always maybe I shouldn't, but I always feel some kind of way about purchasing accessories, accessory patterns, just because the fit doesn't matter as much. Obviously it does if you're wearing a hat, I guess, but for something like a shawl, the fit doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. I simply just need to know the technique. I do not care about the stitch counts. I'll do whatever I want to do with that. So I could not justify spending $10 to learn how to do applied I-cord, which is a technique that a lot of people know and use already. So that's on the pattern. I haven't even talked about the yarn. I just go on 1,000,001 tirades, but I'll be honest, that's not going to change. That's just who I am. But the yarn I'm using, so I'm using my base yarn as, let me just grab it. Yeah. My base yarn is Lion Brand Wool Ease in the colorway Fisherman, I believe. I really do be loving my Lion Brand, okay? Wool Ease is probably one of my favorite yarns. I have knitted a champagne cardigan using Wool Ease in the colorway Thrush. And I find I've watched it multiple times and I love it. I have knitted like multiple, like I've knit a cardigan, no, what's it called? What is this called? I've knit a slipover in the yarn too, which didn't fit, but that was my fault, not the yarn's fault. And I've knit 2 slipovers using it. Anyways, I've knit a lot on with woolies, and I love woolies. I think if you're getting into knitting, it's not even the first yarn I use. I think like the first yarn I loved was Impeccable. And Bernat Softy Chunky, but definitely Lion Brand is like a preferred yarn for me, but it's more expensive. So I think I bought these when they were around like $5. Now they're $7, but again, I always buy from Michael's when there's like a 30% off coupon or sale going on. So I literally would get these for like $3.50 or something like that. Very affordable. Oh, was it $5 or was it $6? Or were they $7? I'm actually now forgetting. I think I mixed it up with Impeccable. I think these were, I would get them when they were $7, and with the coupon they would be like $4.20 or something like that. Yeah, so that's starting to $4.50. Anyways, it was affordable. Okay, is all I'm trying to say. I could get a sweater with like $30. And I actually I will continue to buy Lion Brand because I do want sweaters in my wardrobe that I can machine wash and not be like really, really precious about. So you really can't beat just the versatility. Like the colors are great. It feels like very, like it feels plasticky, but nothing like the plasticky of like an actually fully acrylic. It's just enough. I washed that champagne cardigan I have multiple times, and it's still pretty, like the quality, it still feels good. And so I think the little bit of wool that it does have like helps to really preserve how it feels versus like other acrylics will get really, really plasticky after multiple washes. Again, you're not getting the same quality as you would like with merino, or like it's not obviously not going to be the same quality, but like I don't need to be wearing a merino sweater every day, and this is more than sufficient quality for the everyday. That is simply the base yarn. Again, tangent times 10 million. I am holding it with, and I've caked it up because I now have a ball winder or a hank winder, yarn winder, whatever. I am using, I think it's Amirisu Flutter. Yes, so I bought this in Kyoto in Walnut. There we go. Walnut in Kyoto, which is a yarn store in Japan. They have a lot of, honestly, not just Japanese yarns, but they have a lot of like, I guess like higher end yarns, hand dyed and stuff like that. This is their like the Amirisu hand dyed. It's Surrey. It's a sport. Is it a sport weight? It's like quite a thick yarn. It is 175 meters for 50 grams. Yeah, so I would say that's a sport weight, but because it's Surrey, I feel like it's actually probably like an Aran. Is that how it works? I don't know. I'm not that girl. I don't know that stuff. I try my best to, but I'm holding it with, like it's basically I'm holding a worsted with probably like a Sport DK, I guess. And I'm knitting on 8mm needles. So this is like an hour of work, I swear, or an hour and a half of work or something like that. But it's going by very quickly. I just wanted, after my other Sophie shawl just was a complete fail, I decided I'm going to use this yarn that I bought, the other yarn I bought in Japan, to redeem it. I don't know how I feel about this. I thought Surrey would act similar-ish to mohair, where it would like add like that fluff, and it definitely does, but I feel like it's more so marling versus blending, if that makes sense. So that's very likely just my ignorance on natural fibers and not understanding how things work. So it's not quite what I expected. I don't hate it. I mean, it's not my favorite thing in the world, but I do like a good blue, and I think blue looks good on me. So does blue look good on me? Does blue look good on me? I can't really tell. Blue looks fine on me. Okay, it's okay. And as an accessory wrapped around my neck, I think it'll be fine. I'll wear it with a coat. It'll be cute. I'll wear it when we'll see. We'll figure it out all as well. But I'm excited to have this, and I think it'll go by pretty quickly. that kind of covers the boring cast on, like the relatively boring cast on. I also have two really, really fun, exciting cast on. And actually, now that I think of it, it makes sense why I only really had those two finished objects, because I finished half a yoke. I finished a yoke of a sweater as well. It's my Marsai sweater right here. I'll just put it up. Yeah, I finished that. Like, suddenly all of this makes sense. I finished an entire yoke of a sweater in like a week, which is actually, like, I'm not gonna lie, it is pretty, like, that's not particularly fast. Now that I think about it, I've definitely like knitted yokes in 4 days in the past, but this is on 4mm needles. So anyways, all I'm trying to say is, okay, it makes sense why I don't have that many finished objects, because I have still been knitting. But this piece, oh my god, I love it. So the Marsai sweater, I'm not even going to talk about the whole lore of it. I talk about it very briefly in my like fall knitting plans video, but this is something that was on my fall knitting plans. And I think like when I finished up the field day cardigan, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's technically a summer, like early fall knit. Like that wasn't even in my fall knitting plans. Like I'm so behind. What do I do? And like, I was crazy. I was like wild in, because I talked about 17 patterns in that fall in that fall knitting plans video, and like I can't even knit 17 sweaters in a year, let alone a season. So and I knew that obviously that they were like very aspirational, but I guess I didn't realize how badly aspirational, not just like technique wise, but like quantity wise it was getting. I didn't even know how many I had until I went back and counted. I was like, oh wow. But I start to feel like a little bit of like, oh no, I'm falling behind. I have to like cast on, and that's not a good mentality to have. We shouldn't be stressed out about the things we're doing for fun. But I'm also that girl, so I guess I will stress about everything. The thing is, yeah, so I was like cast on crazy. I was like really into, I'm like, I need to cast on something for myself. And the Marsai sweater is simply the perfect piece. Simply the perfect piece. I'm using, okay, so what I'm using is Drops Lima in the colorway Off-White, I believe, or it might just be white. I think it's Off-White. And I'm pairing like the stripes I'm using, or the color I'm using for the stripes is Sunny Scarn in Double Sunday in the colorway Sailor in the Dark. So like literally gorgeous. I'm obsessed with it. I think it's so pretty. Which are my three only adjectives I've noticed. Obsessed, so pretty, I'm in love with it. So I guess I do need to. I was talking to my cousin, and if she watches this, she might laugh at it, but she said I have not yet mastered the English language. And I was really cheesed about that. I'm like, what do you mean I haven't mastered the English language? What's wrong with my English? And she said, no, you just, you can expand your vocabulary. And I guess she's right, okay? I usually don't admit that you're right, but I guess you were about this one. Anyway, so that's the yarn I'm using. I'll be honest, I'm like very perplexed. I thought I finally figured out like yarn weights, meterage, etc. Like I thought I figured out gauge. In comes in me knitting on this, and I'm suddenly confused all over again, because the Drops Lima has the meterage of a worsted weight yarn, right? It's 100 meters per 50 grams, but it behaves more like a light DK. Where the 4 millimeters is fine, but it is like ever so slightly holy. Like ever so slightly holy. It's not holy, but it's like a little light. Like it's not like full. Like it's just a little light. But the Double Sunday is 108 meters per 50 grams. So arguably it should be thinner, right? It's significantly full. It's like thicker. Like I can feel the density of it. So I don't get it. Like, if someone could explain that to me, I will very much greatly appreciate it. But over this weekend, I did go to another yarn store, and I was trying to figure this out. And I was talking to one of one of the employees there, and she did mention like it really like it varies so much from material, which like I understand, like, it probably does vary a lot from material, but, and, like, you would focus, I guess, more so on the gauge. But I felt a little, like, I was, like, perplexed because Lima, of course, is, like, a really, really good deal, right? It's on sale right now, actually. By the time I edit, it'll probably be over, but I can buy Lima for, like, just under $3 for 50 grams. So I could get a sweater's quantity in just around $30-$40. Like, it's not that bad. Like, it's how much I would spend on a sweater if I were to, like, just buy it in stores. So it is obviously, like, a very good deal, but I feel like Double Sunday will go farther now. So now I'm like, Double Sunday is very expensive. Like, it's $11 for 50 grams in Canada. So that is, like, it's very expensive. So, and even like a, how do I explain it? Like, stretched out version, like, even if you're knitting off gauge and, like, knitting with thicker yarn, you'll still use a lot of yarn, but not as much as I guess you think you would. Like, you could, how to explain it? Like, you could get a sweater in, like, $100, I think, with Double Sunday if you're knitting on, like, 4.5 or 5mm needles. And obviously that's still a very, very expensive sweater, for most people, for myself, you know, but it makes Double Sunday more accessible in the sense, like, it makes it just ever so slightly more accessible. Like, obviously, I'm not, like, tone deaf. Like, it's still a very expensive sweater for myself too. Like, trust me. That makes Double Sunday a little bit more accessible to me than it previously once was. Because I know I can get more out of the same 50-gram ball, and rather than it being, like, triple the price, it may just be more like double the price, a little bit more than double. And, like, I love the quality of Double Sunday, so it's, like, worth it, I guess. It could be worth it. That being said, like, knitting this Lima, I just wanted to drop everything I was doing and buy, like, 7 sweater quantities of Lima. Like, don't worry, Brianna especially, don't worry, I did not do that. I do love the yarn, but I did not do that. It just, like, the way it feels on the hands, I don't know what it is. Like, it feels almost as good as Double Sunday did, like, Sailing in the Dark, when I first used it. But I think this is, like, an anomaly just for this one color. So, I'm done the yoke. So I literally have just been going on a tirade about this yarn because I'm obsessed with it. But, yeah, so the Marsai sweater by Petite Knit. It's now 4mm needles. It's, I think, a 21 stitch gauge, if I'm not mistaken. The Marsai sweater starts off with a very specific type of cast on that I think a lot of people are, like, intimidated by. I always recommend the Nimble Needles video because I think that creator just creates the most, like, most well-explained videos. Like, I just like the way they teach and explain. So if you're having trouble, definitely check out Nimble Needles. My first Marsai sweater, chestnut sweater, whatever, the first time I tried to cast on the Marsai sweater pattern, that's how I learned. But something I've also learned is that I don't like a provisional cast on because I don't like the fact that there is not going to be, like, that extra seam for dexterity and, like, structural integrity, I guess. I would, like, honestly, my preference is just to do a long tail cast on and pick up, because at the end of the day, it's a seam. Like, you're gonna have, like, a line because of the German short rows there anyways. I'd rather it be, like, something I can actually wear and will stay good for a long period of time. Like, who decided that seams are bad? Like, there's nothing wrong with seams. It's a cool technique. It's cool to know that you can do it and it looks seamless. Like, it is. The first time I did it, I'm like, wow, magic. How did that happen? But I think when it comes down to actual use and actual, like, where it's placed, I would rather have the seam to uphold my garment's longevity and safety than the aesthetic of not having the seam there. So that's the one thing I will say. But yeah, I think we'll see how it goes. I will say, like, I think one of the reasons I really like put off knitting this piece for so long was because I just didn't want to deal with like the stripes and the weaving and the ends and everything. And I know there's a way for you to carry up, spoiler, I really do know that there's a way to carry up the yarn, but I initially, like, it was just so intimidated by that like process until I decided, let me just try it and do it. And I watched a video on it and I'm like, this makes zero sense. I don't get it. But then I'm like, whatever, let me just try. So I was knitting, etc., etc. I wasn't even watching the video. I'm like, wait, it just intuitively makes sense to move my yarn like this. Like, I can't even explain it. It's making zero sense. But all I can say is I was so intimidated by carrying up my color, like my yarns when I'm doing like stripes. But it ended up being the easiest thing. I've only now just joined for the body, so I will now have to learn how to do that in the round. But when I was knitting flat, so easy, so lovely, so like efficient. Like I barely even, like, it didn't disrupt my flow of knitting at all either. So that is also like a very, very big relief and something I'm really proud of for myself, because I feel like that's something that was holding me back a lot in like certain patterns that I would want to knit or yarns, like. And now I think, like, seeing how painless it was, I'm really pleased, because now I can knit with like hand-dyed yarn. Like, I could get a sweater's quantity of hand-dyed yarn and not be as worried, and not it be like this huge entire thing that I have to do versus like, oh, just like push the yarn, you know? So I'm very happy about that. The last thing that I have here, ugh, I don't know if you can see this. It's very tiny. But it's just a back panel. Oh, that's not even the front. Right here, it's a back panel. And the color's not coming off. It's coming off very blue in camera, where it's more like a dark teal in person. And this color, one of my most favorite colors in the world. It's not a hat. It's my Friday Slipover V-neck. I'm finally redeeming myself. I'm so excited to be knitting this. So this is Drops Lima in the colorway Petrol Mix. I talked about wanting to do this exact thing in my fall knitting plans video, if you've watched that. But as you can see, it's just this really lovely broken stitch pattern. Everything else I've been knitting here has been stockinette. Oh, and the Sophie shawl was garter. Or like my finesse Sophie shawl was garter. But this is just the back panel. I'm like not even nowhere near ready to pick up sleeves. I think I have like half the length that I have to do, and then I can start increasing. But I'm knitting them on 4mm needles as the pattern suggests. I was initially going to go up to 4.5, but then, you know, go back to my like little tirade about Lima being quite thin. I felt like 4.5 would be just way too big, and I don't think it would create a fab. Like, I didn't try to swatch with it, but I just felt like it would be a better call. Just do the 4mm, and then, honestly, if I run out of yarn, I'll just buy more yarn. It's okay. It's fine. I'm also really hopeful that I can, like, stretch it in blocking, and then if I'm really desperate, I'll buy either this yarn or I'll buy something that is similar, and we'll make it work. And I'll just, like, do the bottom ribbing really, really thick, and the armbands in that color. So it's, like, even if it's a different dye lot, or even if it's a different yarn altogether, we'll make it work. I just whatever. It's not that deep. Right now, this has been like very much a treat to knit because it's mindless without being completely mindless. And you get to see it be worked up. And this is how I felt my first Friday Slipover as well. So hopefully that feeling lasts. One thing I will say, so earlier I was talking about how in love with Lima I am, and I do really, really like this yarn. But this colorway, and I touched another colorway that I have in Deep Taupe, and I think maybe because they're darker colors, they do not feel nearly as nice as the off-white one. The off-white one, like, I just can't even, I was so surprised when I touched it. I'm like, how are you this soft? Like, it makes zero sense. And don't get me wrong, it's still quite nice. Like, the Lima here is still very nice. I like it. I have, like, no complaints. But I'm just surprised that, like, there's such a difference in feel. between, like, I literally thought they were different yarns. So I assume it's just like a matter of the dye and like the color, or like the darker colors like, I'm sure it has something to do with that. I bought both yarns around the same time, so I don't think it's anything like how they process the yarn or anything like that. Or like they changed how they process the yarn. I think it's just for different colors. But this is gonna be a long way. We have a long way to go, but ow, I just poked myself with my needle. But it's gonna be good. Acquisition time. I have acquisitions. I've made a lot of purchases, but funny enough, I still have not gotten them in the mail, because I made an error with our address when I was filling something in, and it got sent back to the sender. So maybe next video I'll have my acquisitions to show, but I bought some cute stuff and I can't wait to show you all. So that's it for today. I know I rambled on a lot. I think I'm still getting used to like the balance of preparing, but then also being really authentic and just like in the moment. So I think as a result of that, I don't take like significantly too many notes. I like, just in general, the spreadsheet I have for everyday tracking of my knits is quite detailed, so I usually just refer to that. And I do notice that sometimes I kind of get off track, so I do apologize. I think next time I think the last video I did, I felt really prepared. But this one, maybe it's just where my brain is at. I felt a little bit scattered today. So maybe the next video I do, I'll just go in with the notes just in case. And hopefully we'll keep things rolling. Thank you always for taking the time to watch my videos. And I wish you all a wonderful day.